Hello and welcome to the Dits on Wrestling podcast, the Royal Navy's only pro wrestling pod. It is DOWPOD birthday week. Sunday we will be celebrating the 1 year birthday of the show to the day, which is very, very good for me. Like I'm glad it's actually fallen that way. Of course, this is releasing 2 days prior to that as some bonus content for you, because I did say I would give you guys a little treat because it's birthday week. And a little bit of a throwback as well. My episodes used to release on a Friday as well, so I figured I'd get another episode out on Friday to kind of commemorate that. The old Friday release day.
Bringing it back. And this is a legitimate treat, a legitimate bonus episode with what we have planned on this episode.
Yeah, like honestly, like I didn't expect this to drop like this week. I thought this was like a couple of weeks away. But the fact we've been able to like quickly turn this thing around in a matter of 2 days,
things came together. You had this awesome idea, and then we chatted about it a bit and reached out, and things turned around, and here we are.
And it's good. It's a good chat.
It's good.
It's good. It's bloody good. You know that?
It's good, yeah.
Bloody good, that. Of course, we're welcoming Richard on, who is the godfather, if you will, of Wrestle Crate UK, a kind of wrestling subscription service here in the UK and available across Europe, Australia and New Zealand as well. So chances are you may have heard of it, you may be subscribed to it. So I mean,
you're a subscriber to it.
I am a subscriber to it, so I am no way affiliated with Wrestle Crate. Just throwing that out there again. Like I'll probably say it a few times in the interview as well, and I do on my review episodes on YouTube as well. I'm not affiliated. I just was, and you were of course as well, like really interested in like the story behind it, because it is a success story.
Oh, it's a major success story. Like I obviously am not in the United Kingdom, but I know very much about Wrestle Crate UK. I know about the unboxing like videos that people love to do on social media and on YouTube, and I thought the concept was great, the product was great, and we did a brief little reading about Wrestle Crate before we did that we were going to get into this interview, just to kind of prime our brains a little bit. But it's a legitimate success story, and we took something that we were kind of like, this is something awesome that we're fans of. Like, can we find out more about it? Can we interview this guy? And as wrestling fans and just like appreciators of people who have become success stories, this was like on the top of our list.
And I think the fact that he's, I mean, you'll know it firsthand as you go through the chat. Like, he's a very humble guy, very down to earth. Like, it's just such a good story. And like to hear him tell it and be so passionate about it, like it's just incredible. So we won't hold you back any longer from the chat. Like, happy birthday to the DOWPOD this week. Enjoy. Happy birthday, boy. Who knew my voice could go that high?
Oh no! Oh, that's some good tones.
Oh yeah. Good. I should be a singer. Definitely not. You've heard our theme song battle. Let's not do that.
True.
Let's not hold you back from this chat any longer. Happy birthday to the DOWPOD this week. Here's some bonus content for you, and myself sit down with Richard from Wrestle Crate UK, the godfather of Wrestle Crate UK, and he's telling us his story of how it all came together and its success story. Here we go.
Yes.
Joining us now is a very different guest to what you might usually have on a wrestling podcast. Usually you get your wrestlers, usually get your referees, announcers, all that kind of stuff. But here at the DOWPOD, we don't like to follow the regular curve. We've got somebody on who's completely different. However, somebody who's going to offer up a really good chat and hopefully a really good story. I've seen a little bit of it and I'm excited to know more about it. It's Richard from Wrestle Crate. He is the godfather of Wrestle Crate UK, in fact. Richard, welcome to the show, buddy.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dits. I'm not going to lie, that's a big intro that I'm going to have to live up to, but I definitely appreciate the kind words if maybe I don't agree with all of them. Thank you so much for inviting us on.
And it's good as well, because usually I've done interviews on my own, but now I have a co-host, so I can literally just sit back and just let Anthony run with this show now and just ask all the questions. It's great.
Nice.
Yeah, it'll work out.
So like, I want to talk obviously about the Wrestle Crate side of things, but something obviously massive happened in the wrestling world as early as yesterday. We're recording on Thursday the 16th. So I just kind of wanted to have your little take on it because, you know, obviously it is big. And I don't know actually if that'll impact your crate in any way, because I know obviously you keep your, you know, cards close to your chest when it comes to stuff that's coming out. Maybe you had some stuff with some guys who have just been on that list of released people. Like, what are your like thoughts on WWE's like crazy moves this week?
Yeah, it's one of those. It's just so, on the rare occasion when there's mass releases like this, at the best of times, never mind the kind of situation we all find ourselves in with, you know, this and that going on around the world at the minute. It's always horrific when you're on social media and you see another guy that you love, and then another girl that you love, and then a backstage personality that's been around forever. So I think as a wrestling fan, first and foremost, and just as somebody who wants to see people kind of do well and be happy and live their dreams, it's just hard to see that news come out. And genuinely, there was no opportunistic thought came into my head at all at any point in the last 24 hours. You know, it's literally just been, you know, seeing things like Spud's video coming out and kind of genuinely trying to hold back the tears, watching him talk so passionately about his dream and what it means and not being with the company anymore, but then going on to talk about the NXT Cruiserweight tournament and kind of promote that while being released from the company. You know, just so many emotions, such an emotional night. But ultimately one that, you know, I understand why wrestling fans are saddened by it, because I certainly felt that myself.
That obviously was such a everybody getting released and let go. Like, the whole thing is just sad and unfortunate. And I know you mentioned Spud there, and that video was like extremely emotionally jarring, and you just really felt for him. But was there any particular release or anything that really like hit hard for you or like hit home that just kind of put it all like, oh my God, like this person went too? Like, oh God.
Yeah, probably a few. I mean, in terms of on screen, Zack Ryder's been with the company for so long. Gave us that WrestleMania moment just a couple of years ago, winning the title in the ladder match, and his dad getting in the ring. But then, you know, backstage, I mean, Mike Chioda has been in WWE longer than I've been a fan. So to see him, is he released? Is he furloughed? Ultimately, not with the company currently. That one really hit hard, because to me he's a kind of a stalwart of the company, if not one that is somewhat of an unsung hero, and maybe not every fan in the world knows his name, but certainly like longer term fans or people like us, you know who he is, respect everything that he's done in WWE since the late 80s, and then maybe add Finn to that. So I mean, a lot hit, but those three in particular kind of really hit home. Finley obviously being, you know, quite close to us, just from over the water, and doing so much for the women's roster in terms of his, helping with the women's revolution and things like that. So I think those are probably the three that hit the hardest. But, you know, it was just shock after shock watching the news come in on social media last night.
And it was nuts. Yeah, and it was kind of like, usually when you refresh your timeline on Twitter, you'll get some idiots retweeting porn. You get other ones like promoting their podcast, which is great because I'm one of those people. You'll get these weird wrestling Twitter after dark things, which has just started, which I guess kind of goes hand in hand with porn a little bit. But then, like yesterday, like literally, if you could refresh your timeline every like 2 or 3 minutes, it was another release, and then another release, and then another, and then a batch. It was just, I don't know. I've never, ever known anything like, as far as I've been a wrestling fan, I've never seen anything that was so, like, devastating. Like, such a massive purge of somebody's roster. And I don't know. I mean, I don't want to go too far into it and kind of, you know, point fingers at WWE and, you know, blame them and say, like, what you've done is just completely unnecessary. Because I don't know the background of it. But either way, it fucking sucks. It really does.
It was such a shocking thing. The closest thing I can ever compare this to as... Like, I'm a big wrestling fan, but I'm also a big sports fan. And in the NFL, like at the end of every regular season, so football games are always played on the Sunday. That next day on Monday is like somewhat referred to as Black Monday in the NFL, because usually like teams that just didn't have a good season or didn't have a good go will fire their head coaches or GMs or managers. So you'll get like anywhere usually from like 4 to 7 firings in a day. And that's the only thing I could compare this to. But this was just, yeah, like so unexpected to a degree and sad. And Rich, to kind of go off your point there, like the Mike Chioda one was the biggest one for me. Like I saw Rusev and I saw a lot of the talent and I was just like, oh, and then I saw Mike Chioda and I was just like, no, like Mike Chioda, like it just, that got me and gutted me like pretty hard.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
But we don't want to obviously keep on a happier note. Yeah, we don't want to keep the negative vibes going.
Let's talk about sad stuff.
Let's get.
I think what's slightly encouraging though is that, you know, now is probably not the time to necessarily talk about where these guys are going to end up with. But if you look at the actual talent that's been released, like, you know, there's a genuine excitement once this kind of passes, and you know, not to take anything away from these people. They are people, but these people have lost their job at a really shitty time. The talent involved, like, there's some exciting opportunities there, and we're going to see these talents kind of spread throughout the world. Some will go to Japan, some will stay in the States, some will come over here. And once wrestling resumes, once life starts to kind of resume and resemble some sort of normality, there's a lot of genuine, exciting opportunities out there. So I'm looking forward to seeing, you know, people land on their feet and really thrive out of what right now is a horrible situation. Like, I'm looking forward to seeing what a lot of these people do, because I know that there's going to be some good things come out of it. It's just horrible at the minute, and you know.
That's a great point. I think once that's like legitimately really spot on. Once things start to normalize and things come back up and regress towards the mean a little bit positively, there's some talent out there that different promotions in the States, Japan, everywhere. I saw somebody was tweeting out something like, oh man, like I would love to see Rusev get put into the IWGP heavyweight title picture right away, or get put into the G1. Like, the thoughts and like positive kind of connotations that can come from it down the road are definitely like something that we could look forward to as wrestling fans. That's a good point.
But in the interim, though, obviously it's not the best of times for them. However, somebody who is offering up the best of times is our very own Rich, who is right here with us right now. I think personally, having, you know, briefly kind of looked at the origins and knowing where you are now, like you have a bit of a success story going on here with Wrestle Crate UK. Like take us back like all the way to the beginning, like. Because if I ever try to sink my teeth, like the most I've sunk my teeth into is a podcast, which I can tell you, it doesn't take really much effort. I'm sat in front of a microphone just talking to people. It's great. But like to mastermind a whole like subscription service, like is mind blowing to me. So like tell us like how that all came about.
Yeah, more than happy to. I'll you know what I need to kind of mention at the start is that Wrestle Crate UK is it started out as what I wanted to do is bring an idea from the States about 4 or 5 months after this idea became a thing, and bring that to the UK and Europe. So I guess my origins are probably going back 12 years or so now, but I used to do a lot of kind of blogging for various websites, things like that. But ultimately, I'm a sucker for physical things. Like I collect physical things, be it, I don't know, Blu-rays or posters or whatever. I just like physical stuff, and a lot of people do. You know, there's obviously a huge collector's market that spans genres. So as somebody who loves physical things and had a love for wrestling magazines when I was younger, my kind of start into the physical merchandise world came from at a time when wrestling magazines were starting to come off the shelves because print media isn't as sought after these days, certainly in terms of news, which wrestling print media was more focused around 10, 12 years ago. You would just get your news on the internet. You wouldn't buy a physical item to get old news. Didn't make a lot of sense. because I liked print media and I liked physical stuff, and I liked the fanzine concept. Like I used to avidly read fanzines of my local football club, Newcastle United. I felt like there was something that could be done there, and we could, create a cool product that was tailored to this modern breed of wrestling fan that's kind of emerged in the internet age. But ultimately, it would be something that you couldn't get on the internet. You could buy it on the internet, but you couldn't find the type of content on a website. It wasn't news. It wasn't that traditional media. So, all's to say, I started a fanzine probably about 7 or 8 years ago, which is still around now, albeit not under my stewardship. But the magazine's called Calling Spots.
Oh, no way!
I didn't know that.
So that's how I started. I was the editor of that, and basically I just really enjoyed. Well, there's a couple of things I enjoyed, lots I enjoyed, but the things I enjoyed the most were working with cool creative people, photographers, artists, obviously the wrestlers for interviews, things like this. Really enjoyed that, and I really enjoyed. I don't know if I want to call it a game, but I found enjoyment out of it comparable to maybe playing a video game, where to me, finding new people, new wrestling fans who would want to read the fanzine to the point that they would spend at that point £1.99 plus postage to get that magazine, have it in their house, to read it, kind of, to me that was like where I got my thrill, so to speak. I know that sounds a bit cheesy, but I really enjoyed what can I do to find people who are like-minded, who want to collect things, who are going to enjoy this magazine, reading it front to back, over a beer, over a cup of coffee, things like this. So I did that for a couple of years, and that's how I got my teeth into physical wrestling merchandise, while kind of unwittingly building up this network of contacts. And then out the blue, probably mid 2015, after Loot Crate had started the boom of, there'd been subscription boxes, but Loot Crate kind of pioneered the nerds and people who are avid fans of certain things are going to want to collect merchandise of that thing. And Loot Crate kind of pioneered that with kind of gaming and comics and that huge subgenre. And then from that spawned just every subgenre of kind of geek fandom that you can think of. And being a geek for wrestling, that was, somebody came up with the idea of, let's start a wrestling themed subscription box. And around the summer of 2015, Wrestle Crate started in the US. So my first train of thought wasn't, I can do that. My first train of thought was, I wonder if this great company who've got me really excited with their innovative idea, there's never been a monthly mystery box of wrestling goodies until this. What if they put my magazine in these boxes in America? Would the magazine then be read more in the States? Would that translate? So that's how I got my start. For the first couple of months, I was just shipping magazines over every month to Wrestle Crate in the US, trying to kind of build up a subscriber base over there and tap into the American fans who to that point I hadn't been able to reach through. No one's going to pay kind of £5 shipping for a £2 British magazine. So finding my way into the States was difficult. But then that train of thought, I started thinking backwards. I was like, hang on a minute. So I'm watching all these unboxing videos to see if people like the magazine. And I'm worried about how much I'm paying getting the magazines shipped individually over there. I'm not seeing many British people or European people unbox these Wrestle Crates. I wonder if Wrestle Crate are having the same problem I'm having, that no one's going to pay X amount to have a big, heavy box shipped from the States to get it to the UK or Germany or Ireland or France or wherever. So, to cut a long story short there, within a day or so, I was putting together a business case to pitch to this company. I want to start a business, a totally separate business, and run alongside you and basically pay you a sum of money to use the name Wrestle Crate, but to build up a separate customer base here in the UK. And that didn't take long to iron out the details, and it kind of started from there. Wrestle Crate in the US actually doesn't even exist anymore. It hasn't done for at least a year, I think maybe even two. But we've just kind of grabbed the bull by the horns and really ran with it here in the UK. To the point where you say we've got this kind of reasonably sized customer base that spans across Europe plus Australia and New Zealand.
That was awesome.
So like,
I have so many thoughts.
so like when you're in that situation where you go, right, this is what I'm going to throw this together, like, and we're going to see how it goes. You've seen how successful it is, obviously in the States, it's no more. I don't know what they've got a different one out there in the States now, and it's like Pro Wrestling Crate or something like that.
Yeah. So Pro Wrestling Crate came. So Pro Wrestling Crate wasn't started by Pro Wrestling Tees initially, but the name lined up so perfectly that it worked out pretty well for them in the end. Was it Top Rope Tuesdays? I think that was the name of the t-shirt company. Anyway, some different guys started a company called Pro Wrestling Crate about 6 or 9 months after Wrestle Crate started, and then they ultimately sold up to Pro Wrestling Tees. So now Pro Wrestling Crate is Pro Wrestling Crate by Pro Wrestling Tees, and actually Pro Wrestling Tees ended up buying out the American Wrestle Crate, which is why that doesn't exist anymore. They just got rid of it, bought it out basically. So that's where that's gone. So in the States now, you've got Pro Wrestling Crate, and that's, again, not only a separate company to us, but they are just, unrelated to Wrestle Crate UK whatsoever. But they've essentially bought out their competition, a bit like Vince did in the 80s.
Oh, power move.
So from the point where you go, right, this is what I want to do. I saw a picture on, I can't remember if it was the actual Wrestle Crate Twitter account or your own personal one, where it's a white van and this thing is chock-a-block with Wrestle Crates. And I was looking at that and I was just like, because I wasn't aware that was the case. I always just had the assumption, they've always had, the warehouse and that's the way it's always been. But like I saw the van with all the Wrestle Crates. I was like, Jesus Christ! Like you forget that obviously a company has to start from somewhere. So from you going, this is what I want to do, to having that white van full of Wrestle Crates, like how did you get from A to B?
Well, actually, believe it or not, that white van was probably B, and we're probably at about M or N now. So the white van was real early. I was very image conscious, so because Wrestle Crate started and blew up quick in the States, because again, being the first of anything, if there's a desire, if there's an appetite amongst wrestling fans or not just anybody, to have something, if you're the first to do it, you're going to get customers, subscribers, whatever your market is, immediately through just being the first. So Wrestle Crate in America went boom, and I was then a little bit conscious that we're bringing this to the UK. We need to not be seen as a startup, because this is an established brand, albeit new, 5-6 months by that point. Ultimately, it's a brand that people recognize, and not just that. You want people to, when you're a small business, and there's an element of trust that comes from, if you're buying from a company for the first time or subscribing to a monthly service and trusting somebody with your money. Ultimately, you want to, there's got to be a certain level of professionalism. But, like you've just alluded to, the early months, the whole thing was just ran out of my garage for at least a year, probably more. Oh, wow. So I was always conscious of hiding that and trying to make the best out of what we had. So, ultimately, a garage in my house isn't very big. It's about the size of a car plus a little bit of wiggle room. So I always try to like get the, when that van was absolutely filled with, I don't know what month that was. I know the photo you mean, it was probably month 1 or 2. If it was month 1, there was 200 boxes in the van. If it was month 2, there was 400 boxes in the van.
Oh man.
Not a huge number, but if you fill a van if you fill basically somebody's small 6-man truck with a couple of 100 boxes, it looks quite impressive. So we took that photo to put that on social media because, look at us, we're a professional company, look how many boxes are going out. But in reality, we are still a small business. Whereas now, I don't tend to think I should probably get a photo of these 3 Royal Mail trucks that have just turned up outside the warehouse, and they're now going to have to send another one because we've filled all 3 trucks, That just happens, and that's a minor inconvenience to the day, because I just want to get the boxes out to people as quickly as possible. So, all of that is to say that kind of transition, and I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but I actually wrote a thread on my personal Twitter about a year ago when we moved in to the warehouse, just kind of thanking the subscribers, because the reality is that transition from garage and a couple of 100 boxes in the local post offices owners van to where we are now with, thousands of subscribers all over Europe, and a genuine warehouse that has our logo on the door when you go in. To me, that's really humbling, and ultimately wouldn't be possible without our subscribers. And it still blows my mind that at the end of each month, when we're done packing, so we'll pack over a weekend, and I'm hands-on in the warehouse myself. I go down, I'm involved. It's not just my team. I like to be there and stay for the duration. The very end of the last day, when all the boxes are done, like, again, don't want to sound too kind of cheesy or anything, but it's just nice to look at all those boxes, because each box is a wrestling fan. Each one of those is a person who's seen what we do and thought, I want that. I want to open up that mystery box and see what's inside. And that's the bit that gets me, that each box filling up this huge space by the end of the 2 days or however long we end up packing. That's a person, that's a wrestling fan, and that's crazy. And that's, huge thanks to our subscribers for just getting us to where we are now.
And that story was, one, awesome. Two, I'm extremely inspired by any type of anything, like the big things have small beginnings type of thing. And you took something that was organic and an idea and have made it into somewhat of a legitimate giant now, going from a van to a warehouse. And a couple of things you mentioned, obviously, like shouting out your subscribers and the network base. When you notice kind of like the American Wrestle Crate, and then noticing like the lack of that in Europe, and figuring you could tap into that, did you find a lot of struggle or challenge in establishing a subscriber base or network base in the initial stages?
Genuinely, not really, and that's what kind of struck me quite a little bit. But and I think that goes back to what I was alluding to about being the first. So at this point in time, there was still just Wrestle Crate. There wasn't another different subscription service, and so people wanted it. But until the last maybe 5 years or so, getting the really good merchandise over here in the UK has always been a struggle, and it still can be. Like, a lot of figure collectors often complain about you get kind of Walmart exclusives and Target exclusives and things like this that you just don't get in the UK. And if I'm being honest, that does piss me off. Like, as a wrestling fan, like, I want, and again, being selfish, as a collector of things, like, I can emphasize with other wrestling fans who collect things that want to have a full collection and want to get the same stuff that their counterpart wrestling fans in the States get. So my initial feeling was, I can do something here. I can bring this to people in Europe, to wrestling fans in Europe, and save them a significant amount of money, and kind of while also doing things my way. So, and by that I mean there was two. I had two things that I wanted to achieve out of Wrestle Crate, and these two things became the kind of pillars that the rest of the company's kind of business plan was built upon in the early days, and are still true today. So number one was bringing good wrestling merchandise from around the world to the UK without wrestling fans having to pay extortionate shipping costs. That was thing number one. That was the primary driver. And then the second thing was that I wanted to support as much as possible British wrestling as much as any other wrestling company in the world, because it would be easy enough to do the monthly mystery box and try and target WWE fans only, whereas people always talk about, wrestling's it's a variety show, and you've got a mix of everything, and it's different flavors and it's different tastes, and you might like this match but you won't like the match after. And that Wrestle Crate, by kind of definition of what it is, a monthly mystery box, should really tailor to every taste. And to me, a big part of that was make sure that British wrestling's well represented, well supported, and in particular, basically what I'm saying, support financially where I can, and those were the two key things that I wanted to achieve with Wrestle Crate in the early days.
Oh, that's awesome.
I think it's safe to say that you have achieved that from all the way back then to even now, because, like, I mean, I don't hide the fact I do subscribe to Wrestle Crate. In fact, Rich, this is my year one in April for Wrestle
wow.
Crate.
Well, happy anniversary, and thank you for a full year of amazing support.
Yeah, my wife told me that, and I was like, no way has that been a year already. But no, it has been a year already. Crazy. But yeah, just being a subscriber, like, I know the variety that goes in here. Like, and, you know, like you said, like, you cater for every single wrestling fan. So there's times when I'll get stuff in this crate and I'll go, that's a really good item. I just don't know who the guy is. Like, that's happened like a couple of times, and I don't hide the fact. But there are so many people that are, I mean, I know I have this podcast and, you know, I pretend to be the all-knowing wrestling fan, but I'm really not. But there are going to be some diehard, like, Brit Rest fans out there who every single item they get through here, like, they know exactly what it is. And I know the excitement they have because it was the unboxing videos that drew me to Wrestle Crate in the first place, you know, and seeing their reactions and stuff like that. Like, and that must be so good for you as well, like, because I don't know how many unboxing videos or review videos you watch, like, after every crate goes out, but that must be so good for you to go back on YouTube or wherever they post these videos and just have a look and just see, like, smiles on everybody's faces, like, genuine surprise on people's faces, because some of the items you throw in there, like, I've gone, whoa, hang on a minute, how's that in there? You know, that must be such a good feeling for you.
It's amazing. I mean, I think the thing that gets me the most is when you see like a family unbox it together, like a dad and his two boys opening a box together, or they've all got one and they're kind of getting excited and picking out certain things. Like that gets me every time. Seeing people with their first box, seeing maybe a couple where, I don't know, the girlfriend buys the box for herself and our boyfriend's not really a wrestling fan, but then he's like, oh, actually that t-shirt's pretty cool, I wish things like that. But, you know, it's weird. I watch, to answer your question, or to the point that you made there, I do watch a lot of unboxing videos. I mean, between kind of me and key members of my team, I estimate we'll probably watch them all. Like, you know, my team like seeing them. For me, though, I watch as many as I can, and I watch a lot. But there's an element of, even now, 56 crates in every month, that I get genuine kind of nerves, butterflies, like the day that I know, right, okay, they're going to start to arrive, like, what are people going to think? Like, I've been talking about this item, this Becky Lynch item, are they going to enjoy how it came out, or, you know, I put this surprise in there, and how's that going to go, because I haven't announced that, so that's a total surprise. Is that going to be well received? So sometimes, like, the nerves do genuinely, like, even now after kind of 4.5 years of doing it, the nerves do get to us a little bit, which is strange. I should be used to it, but like I say, I think because we are a small kind of family-run business, and because each Wrestle Crate that leaves the in the back of that red Royal Mail van is a wrestling fan at the other end of that delivery, like, you know, I take a lot of responsibility, I think, because in my mind, like, what we do is we curate what we think is the best possible value for that wrestling fan's money. So whether they want to spend $11.99 for a Wrestle Crate Lite or $21.99 for a full Wrestle Crate, my responsibility there is to maximize their enjoyment and what they're going to get out of that money. Like, they've trusted me, they've trusted Wrestle Crate, and me as the person that kind of, you know, decides what goes in each month's Wrestle Crate. They've trust us with making that decision of what goes in, and if we don't get it right, then that does feel rubbish. But when we do get it right, and when we do see, first of all, it's a massive relief. Like, right, okay, this month's box has landed really well, and then just a wave of kind of good feeling once you start to see these unboxing videos and people enjoying it, and people getting excited about what you thought was the smallest item in the box, a straw, you know, a reusable straw with the word "suck it" engraved, and people go wild for the straw, and it's like, can't believe it. Like, here's me, you know, thinking that the Shawn Michaels autograph's the best item I've ever done. Yes, people are going wild for this straw. Like, unbelievable scenes.
That straw is still going strong in this house as well.
Oh yeah, I use mine all the time. The looks that I get when I go to the football and I'm with the lads drinking pints, and I've got a soda and lime because I've got work to do later, and I've got my little metal straw sticking out of my soda and lime in the beer garden.
What's your? I'm glad you touched on it there, because it was something that I've had in my mind since we started talking about it. What's your like selection process or curating process, like to use your word that you mentioned, what does that look like from month to month? Like, how do you or your team decide, like, all right, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to leave out, this is what we can put in? Is there like a formula, or is it just something you guys kind of feel out?
A bit of both. So formula has came kind of through repetition and just kind of having, for me, it's important that there's no bias towards certain companies, and it's not, because it would be very easy for me to just put what I like in the box every month. So
right.
What I try to do is remove my bias by, I have to consume a lot of wrestling, but without enjoying too much of just one. So, I mean, the internet makes that possible. I'd be lying if I said I actually watched lots of wrestling these days, because I have to consume it in such huge volumes that it would be impossible to work and also watch the amount of wrestling I would need to watch. And also for me, the thing that's important isn't, again, it's not what I like, it's what do other people like. So social media is obviously huge for that, and I call that kind of having my finger on the pulse. So that's one thing, that's a thing in itself. In terms of a selection process, the ultimate, the final decision is with me, and that's purely because, a camel is a horse designed by committee. It's, if one person has the final say, then that person either gets it right or they get it wrong. If they get it wrong, they learn from it. Committee's not the way forward. But at the same time, like I say, can't just be what I like. So within my team, I kind of bounce ideas around, and what do you think about this? What about this item? What about this wrestler? And da da da. So I've got a kind of a web of people that I use as my kind of, to bounce ideas off. And I'm not too kind of proud if my idea, if I come up with something that I think's great, and a couple of people say, look, that is rubbish, then that idea is dead. I'm not going to push it at all. But I like the responsibility to rest on my shoulders, because then, like I said, when I get something wrong, I can learn from it. When I get it right, then again, I'll learn from that too, and can kind of push on with things like that. So I guess they're the principles. That doesn't necessarily strictly answer your question. From there, the logistics, again, this has just kind of fell into place, if I'm being honest, through doing it for 4 and a bit years now. But we plan as far ahead as 9 to 12 months for the big items.
Oh, wow. So
I've got a roadmap of who's going to be announced as the marquee items each month. And don't get us wrong, that changes. But at least the plan's there, and there's a plan there that can change as opposed to no plan and just winging it. So I know that the kind of the big, like, genuinely exciting things that we've got in the pipeline, and this isn't necessarily just to turn this into a marketing employee, but we've got some genuine superstars items coming up. We've got some people that you could say they are the greatest of all time type coming up. So we're planning that stuff 9 to 12 months in advance, so I know kind of what I'm doing for the rest of the year, maybe a little bit beyond that. And then the rest kind of just filling in the gaps. And that's not a derogatory term. That's going back to what I said about different flavours. It's got to be that each month's box has to fit in with. It has to appeal to as many wrestling fans as possible. Once I know what the marquee items are, I can then start to piece together what would go well with that. What's the polar opposite of that? What would what's available? What's timely? Because there's some items that you've got to do it now or never. And actually, there's an item like that this month, without spoiling it, but because the boxes haven't shipped just yet. But there's an item this month that if we didn't do it this month, we just would never have done it. So we did it, and it's done. So we always leave gaps for that. And we've got some really good suppliers that we've worked with for so long, and given so much money basically that they can turn things around really quickly if we'll come up with a silly idea that we think, actually, let's do this. This is really timely, and let's just get it done. So things just fall into place. And I tend to have backup items ready because things can go wrong. Things can arrive damaged or go missing or not be quite right. So there's always stock of other things that are earmarked for future months ready to go, so that if disaster was to strike, ultimately our subscribers would still get their monthly Wrestle Crate, and actually probably wouldn't even know that there'd been a disaster. In the background, I've got a couple of new grey hairs and a couple of sleepless nights getting the problem sorted. But on the outside, everything's smooth sailing.
Nice.
And it's something that I'm curious. I mean, this is literally just purely because I have the crate and I have questions in my head every time I'm like open it. Like when it comes to the autographs that you get, obviously you always post like pictures of the guys actually going through these massive piles of like photo prints and stuff like that, which is crazy. The fact that somebody would like happily sit there and sign for God knows how many hours that takes them to do it. But like when it comes to, because independently, I assume it's a lot easier to get them on board to do autographs.
Yes, yes is the short answer. So if somebody's unsigned, then they should do whatever they want. If they want to spend a few hours signing autographs for Wrestle Crate, then they can make that decision. But we've made some big inroads in the last year or so to the point that. Let's have a quick think. So we've had Becky Lynch this month. We'll work with Finn Balor for an item it's not last January. January just gone. We've got another, top tier superstar in a month or two.
Teasing me.
I know.
Yeah, that's a good tease. Good foreshadow.
And we've started making inroads purely because these wrestlers are being able to do private signings, which they're arranging via the manager, and the manager then works with kind of promoters in the US, and we're able to team up through that basically. So that makes us somewhat akin to, I don't know, when you see wrestlers at conventions and things like that. It's effectively the same. The only difference is take away the photos and the meet and greet, and it's just signing autographs, and they do a lot more because it's a lot. There's not a line of fans wanting to chat. They can do it in the comfort of their hotel or wherever they want to do it, So in terms of the signed wrestlers, that tends to be how that works. And like I say, we've made a few kind of inroads in terms of just building up our network of contacts and being able to make that happen. But yes, to answer your question, the independent wrestlers it's easier to work with an independent wrestler in terms of just the logistics and their schedule and where they are in the world at any given time and price and things like that.
Yeah, because I've had like contact with people within WWE trying to get wrestlers. I've spoken to two wrestlers under WWE's employ who both said, yeah, we're happy to come on. You just need to speak to so-and-so. And I was like, oh, here we go. So I went through all the proper went through all the proper channels and all that, and they just kind of went, nah, this is way too much effort. I'm just going to slam on the brakes. I
think that's where we get a little bit lucky, because I do get why WWE would potentially restrict somebody from doing an interview, because then they don't know what. Whereas I guess what we do is kind of safe, Like there is restrictions when we feature items with WWE talent, and that extends to even working with, I don't know, Funko, for example, who because they are the licensor of WWE's name. There's a reason why we can't slap and would never slap a WWE logo on anything. So we would never, we don't advertise an item as WWE superstar, We just say, exclusive signed item from this person.
Yeah.
Because that's who we're working with. And I think in a sense, it's really lucky that we're in that position to be able to do that.
Does I have so many questions. I feel like I could talk to you forever. But obviously, like with you being a supplier of product, and you mentioned a couple times like your vendors and your suppliers, did you find it challenging or difficult to establish the lines of supply for obviously your business?
Yes. Yes.
Walk us through that process, a little bit, kind of how that
first year. Like, I just didn't sleep very much. I was just, because a lot of my suppliers initially were in the US. It was just hard work. Like in the early days, nobody's mentioned this for years, but in the early days, one of the biggest challenges that I faced was that Wrestle Crate in the US, when it was still around, originally built their model on kind of creating a product that was aimed at and made for figure collectors first and foremost. And again, this is probably part of the reason why I'm very self-conscious about don't make this product for me. That was an internal decision. Clearly, that wasn't a business decision necessarily. That was driven by who was involved, I think, in my opinion. So the challenge that led to was initially the expectation was that Wrestle Crate UK was very figure based, but the reality of the situation is that getting figures in the US directly from Mattel is a lot easier than trying to deal with Mattel's, I guess, sister company. I don't even know. Over here, the amount of money that was involved, like Wrestle Crate would have been run at a loss for a long time just to get those items. It was just not, and that's just one supplier. So that's why Mattel figures made a very short-lived appearance in Wrestle Crate and never again. And back to my point about kind of, it's my responsibility to best spend somebody's money. And if I know they can walk into, I don't know, Smith's here in the UK, at the toy shop, and buy a figure for 20 quid at the time, maybe a bit more now, and they give me £22, but I've got to spend 17 of that to get this £20 figure, that's just not a good use of their money. If they could buy it themselves for £3 more, let me go and get Ric Flair's autograph for that money, plus a Jake the Snake Roberts T-shirt, plus an ELP pin badge, plus a Kenny Omega poster. All of these. To me, it made more sense to just focus on where I can best spend this money to make sure that what my subscribers get in their box, they feel, wow, that is great value for money. So yeah, suppliers was hard initially. That eases after time, I guess, because you realise who's good to work with, who isn't, who let you down, who doesn't, who's bending over backwards to fix problems. So after a year or so, that was okay. Plus, we got to the point where, and again, this was one of the kind of residual effects of the being able to move into the warehouse, and why I was I'm quite vocal on social media about how thankful I am for our subscribers anyway, but when we moved into the warehouse, to me that was a big moment, because I was thankful to my subscribers because that allowed us to start to in-house certain things. So, for example, I don't know, instead of producing a certain item and paying somebody else to do it, like, why don't I just buy the tools that I need to do that myself, and then I can repurpose that money elsewhere that I would have been spending twice the amount to do whatever I was doing. Whereas now I can give a wrestler a little bit more money, and there you get one extra officially licensed product, as opposed to I don't know, 4 officially licensed products plus Wrestle Crate, nothing to do with the wrestler type item. So things like that have helped the crate evolve, because like I say, it means that there's more budget to spend on licensing and paying the wrestlers and the promotions, and being able to get cooler stuff in the box, basically.
Nice.
And there's a lot of cool stuff that we get in that box as well. You'll know from my review videos that I never say anything negative, and I always have to start these things as well with the caveat, as I am not associated with Wrestle Crate UK, because all I say is good stuff. Like, there's never like a bad moment. Like, you guys have been very, very good to me when stuff has not shown up and stuff like that, and I think that goes a very, very long way. And just speaking to you, like, for the 45 minutes we've been speaking now, like, I can tell, like, how passionate you are about this, and like it literally just shines through, because I am obviously on the other end of those crates going out of that warehouse and landing at my front door. So, like, I don't know, it's really cool for me to be able to speak to you now, and I'm sure it'll be the same for anybody else who's subscribed and listening to you. Like, the man behind this phenomenon, is so passionate and cares so much about it, and is willing to do stuff that some other people might not be willing to do, go that extra mile, and it's great. It's really, really good to see.
That's really nice to hear. I really I appreciate that sentiment. I try and keep Wrestle Crate faceless, purely because we feature so much talent every month for wrestlers, promotions, artists, photographers, whoever. That's who the focus right you should be on. So Wrestle Crate's always been somewhat faceless, but whenever I do get the opportunity to speak, such as now, so, thank you both for having me on, or quite recently I made the first ever kind of on-camera video that I've had to do for Wrestle Crate, just to talk through a few things that we're doing to both ensure that Wrestle Crate continued throughout, all of this coronavirus stuff, but also that we were using the fact that we could continue to help people in the wrestling community who couldn't work at this time. When I have to, I like to, I'll always wear my heart on my sleeve, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because I am passionate about it, because I do take what we do so seriously, and I do, maybe not serious is the word, I think responsibility is the word to come back to that. Like, I don't, for any second, do I take for granted our subscribers and kind of what they do for us. So to me, it's a responsibility that I have, that I'm proud to have, to do whatever I can to make sure each month's box is as good as it can be, because they trust me with their money to make those decisions. So I'll make sure that Wrestle Crate delivers, literally and figuratively, as best it possibly can.
I'm glad you mentioned, and again, like, I don't want to put a dark cloud over this chat for too long, but I'm glad you mentioned, like, the corona side of things. Has that impacted Wrestle Crate in any way, shape or form? Because I know obviously you've continued to do what you've been doing, but like, have you had anything go on there that has affected you?
Yeah, a little bit. So, I mean, ultimately, it's made us plan more thoroughly for every eventuality. It's allowed us to give back even more than we normally would. And when I say give back, I mean give back above and beyond. I don't class what we do daily as kind of giving back. That's just working with other kind of small businesses. But we've been in a kind of position to give back during this. But it has affected us. I don't want to dwell on that too much, because we are quite lucky. Like, the UK government guidelines are that online retail is open and encouraged. So I know that we are in an advantageous position and a privileged position. So yes, there's been some impact to Wrestle Crate. Some subscribers have sadly lost their job, and understandably then can't afford to have a Wrestle Crate currently, and hopefully we'll come back. But right now, we're not a priority, and that is completely understandable. Yeah. On top of that, a lot of the businesses we work with, maybe not a lot, some, their kind of key markets that the people that they sell to and companies that they sell to are live event companies, like bands, touring bands and things like this. So while they're not getting much work, they might as well, even though I wouldn't do it, I guess their company's ethos is, well, if we just shut up shop and furlough our staff, that we haven't got enough work to justify staying open. That then affects me. So yes, there's been some impact, but not enough to warrant me talking about it and crying about it, because ultimately, as of things right now, we are open, business as usual. We've planned more than ever, to the point that, in theory, if all but one of my suppliers was to close now, and I've already made plan B and C if this one was to close, but if all but one of my suppliers was to close today, we could still ship. We've already shipped April's Wrestle Crate. We could just ship May's Wrestle Crate. We could ship June's Wrestle Crate, and we'd get to July comfortably with the amount of stock that is around, is available now, basically. So, and that's the kind of, for me, the important thing is the thing that's been a blessing in disguise is that this has allowed us an opportunity to try and help other people throughout this situation. So because we've been lucky, and because we are going to, as a small business, ask our subscribers to keep supporting us, and yes, some will understandably have to leave, but if people are able to, if they keep supporting our small business, it's on us to then in return support other small businesses. So we've done that in we say 3 ways, but it's actually 4. So the first thing that we did was we wanted to work with wrestlers early. So like I say, I've got enough stock to put together the next 3 months worth of Wrestle Crates, but then actually there's a bit more beyond that. So we've worked with can't remember the numbers now, but I think it's 6 wrestlers, 5 small businesses, a couple of photographers, a few artists, and give them the next 3 months worth of work up front in advance. So while they're not working shows, we might not need these autographs until December, but why not sign them now, and we can put some money in your pocket now when you're not working shows. So we've got to do that. For the month of March and April, and then we'll extend it if needs be. If subscribers enter the code support when they subscribe, we'll give them £1 to wrestlers who aren't currently working, and then 50% of all of total sales from our Second Chance store, all of that money as well is going to wrestlers. That then morphed itself into the fourth thing that wasn't meant to be a thing, that we've had the original Wrestle Crate, the first ever Wrestle Crate box, sat in my office, in my house, for 4.5 years, waiting for a rainy day. And I've always said the day's going to come and I'm going to raffle this, and people are going to want it because it's the first one. There's only 200 of them. It's got a rare Funko pop vinyl in it that you just can't get anymore. That's probably worth 40, 50 quid on its own. Matt Hardy autograph, blah, 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 blah. Now's the time to use this. So we'll raffle that off. And I hoped that it would raise £100. I was like, I've sat on this box that I could have, sold for $21.99 4.5 years ago. If I get 100 quid out of this, it's been worth sitting on all this time. Anyway, so we'll raffle that off, and our subscribers raised more than £1,000 through that raffle alone.
Oh wow!
Just to give to wrestlers. So, it's been amazing. So come the end of the month, we're going to have a nice pot of money that's already over £1,000. That we've went out to the people who entered the raffle, and they've nominated kind of wrestlers who are unable to work shows currently, who don't have an income outside of wrestling. And then we're going to look through all these wrestlers that people have nominated, and we're going to pick maybe 4 or 5 that we're going to. As long as they're happy to accept it, we're going to then give this money to, and kind of try and do a little bit extra to support them above and beyond kind of what would normally do. So to me, that's the silver lining of the current government guidelines, and the blessing that give us, that we can still, with some minor tweaks and changes to how we operate, we can still thankfully do what we do. Like, this is the least we can do, from our small business to other small businesses, basically.
That's awesome. Your whole business model as a whole, I think Dits as well, like, we find extremely intriguing and are like fans of, and to be able to like talk to you and get that business picture and how you started and where you're going and what you're doing and your process a little bit, obviously is like the reason you were brought on. But like you, not to be corny or whatever, but like your vision of what you're doing and the reason behind why you started this and why you're doing it, I find commendable. But also that everything you just said on like the Corona piece, like you being able to help out the wrestling community and the wrestlers themselves and give them things, literally like a financial stability, like up front, and allow it to still work for your business. Like I think that's something that should be legitimately commended. And I know it's easy to say because you're like on the show right now, but I think in times like this, it's easy for people to kind of tighten the purse strings a little bit, or maybe just, circle the wagons and try and figure out like, okay, we have to do this for finances, but you've managed to do something and maintain your bottom line, and at the same time help out a lot of people who need it while still maintaining like your customer base. And that's extremely rare and is awesome. And you're a great person for that. Well,
yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And we had a decision to make quite early. Like let's feel this out in the first week or so, and if things feel okay, let's take a calculated risk. So, and back to the kind of point I made about not liking to put my face on kind of camera to keep Wrestle Crate faces. The reason why I shot the short video that I referenced earlier was to talk through that very point, that there isn't, if I'm honest, there is and was an element of risk kind of buying all this stock, because if the government were to turn around and put us under total lockdown, then we would have to stop for a period, if that was what circumstance dictated, or if we couldn't do what we do safely, then we would have to stop. But we were able to act quickly and make a like I say, I think calculated risk's the phrase that we felt like, okay, guidelines for businesses aren't great, but looks like we can probably continue. The reality is that we're going to have to pack a lot less people are going to have to pack the boxes over a much longer period of time to do it safely, because normally we'll have, 12 people packing, and I would not allow 12 people to be in that warehouse. It isn't essential work. It's so, to me, it's when I say skeleton staff, I'm pretty much talking like 3 people in a big warehouse, so that they are nowhere near each other type situation. But let's take this calculated risk. It feels like our subscribers are going to stick with Wrestle Crate. It's only been a week. This is Rewinding month. It's only been a week of kind of coronavirus really gripping the, government guidelines starting to change and people realizing how serious this is and because things feel like they're going to be okay, let's do what we can to give back. And yes, it's a risk, but if we are upfront about that risk and say, if you stick with us, we can do this, then we trust that it'll be okay. And a month on, I don't regret that decision in the slightest. I think it's the best thing that we could have done, because like I say, a month on, I'm looking back thinking, wow, we've been able to work this past month. Others who are a lot more embedded in the kind of industry that we're on the fringes of, they can't work. That decision's allowed us to help in our small way, and that to me is like super rewarding, personally anyway.
And you guys have to be like massively applauded for doing that, because you don't have to do it. That's the thing. It's not something that's mandatory for you. Like, you're just doing this off your own backs, and like you said, you're taking taking a risk to yourselves, and it is paying off. Because I mean, how many wrestlers right now are out of a job essentially? So it's honestly it's a heartwarming thing to see you guys doing that for the people that were there to entertain us when wrestling was a thing and no longer can do that. It's nice to see you guys kind of supporting them the way they've shown some willingness to put their bodies on the line for us. So honestly, I could applaud you for I could give you an NHS applause for that. But with regards to like all the wrestlers and promotions and stuff like that you've like had contact with, like, have you had any like interesting interactions with any of them?
Oh yeah. So I remember speaking to Matt Riddle on the phone, sorting out. So we were sorting out his autograph signing about 3 years ago, maybe 3.5. I don't know. Yeah, 3 years ago. If that feels about right. It was anyway, I digress. So he was in England. I think he was at Progress, and would sort out an autograph signing while he was over. But he just wanted to do it all himself, so he picked them up himself, and he was just kind of carrying around these 3 heavy boxes of autographs, and then it started raining. So he hid in a bus stop until the shower finished, and then he rang me, and I'm just sat there thinking, I'm chatting to Matt Riddle, who's the most chilled bloke you'll ever meet, and he's just casually, in a bus stop with a big pile of prints that he's going to go back to his hotel and sign. And that was that to me. The best wrestler interactions and the best promotion interactions are just when people do something above and beyond what's expected. Sometimes when a wrestler signs an autograph, so Sugar Dunkerton's probably a good example. Let's take Sugar Dunkerton and let's take Rob Van Dam. So Rob Van Dam, understandably, to be fair, Rob Van Dam was also signing for Wrestle Crate in the US, so probably signed 2 or 3 times the amount. But Rob Van Dam's autograph became RVD. By the end it was short. Whereas Sugar Dunkerton signed his autograph, and then he wrote, I estimate 50 different messages. So he would write the same message, X amount of times, then switch it up, and he just wrote these little personal messages, like full sentences, like big, long, like much longer than his autograph. And it must have taken him, what could have been a 3 or 4 hour job if he just autograph, and just, just cracked on and got it done. Probably took him a good few days. And when I asked him, I was like, mate, this is amazing. He was like, yeah, I just want to do something different. And it's things like that. Like, he's not getting paid anymore. Like, he hasn't told me he's going to do it. He hasn't said, look, I could do this, but it's going to cost this amount extra for this inscription. He just did it because he's a nice guy. And he thought, I've got a bit of spare time to do it or whatever. And it just made for a cool item. And to me, that's the kind of thing that I don't forget. Christian, WWE Christian, when we worked with him, he suggested that to save on shipping costs, he was having a long vacation in London, maybe 3 or 4 weeks. He said, why don't you just send them to where I'm staying and I'll just sign them when I'm there.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, just to save us, 600 quid that would have just got lost. That's 500 or 600 quid we could spend on something else to go in the box. But, he saved us that money getting these autographs shipped from the US because he was like, well, I'm going to be in London in 6 weeks or whatever. I'll just do them there and then for a while. So it's the little things like that, the little things that you don't forget. They really stand out and make you think that, that's tremendous.
I still can't. I can't stop thinking of Matt Riddle sat in a bus stop with a couple of crates in the pouring rain.
I think I've got a photo of it. I'll send you a photo. I've got a photo. He took us like a selfie, just sat in the bus stop with these.
Oh, that's awesome.
These boxes. I was like, "Are you okay, Matt?
Is there anything I could do for you?" And I can picture him just be like, "Nah, bro, I'm cool. It's raining. It is what it is."
Probably wasn't used to the London weather.
With those little, that's actually like a perfect segue for a question that I had. Like the little personal tidbits for like wrestlers and just anything, like really add something so special to like an experience for someone. And with you being here, a little personal question that I had, being obviously, as you mentioned several times, like you're a collector and you like to have physical things. What is your favorite collectible thing that you own? It could be wrestling related. It could be something else. What is like your most prized collectible thing?
That's a good question. So I'm in my office. I keep calling it an office. It's how I've justified having a man cave. But there's a desk and there's a couple of monitors and there is maybe 20% of the room is office, but the other 80% is man cave. Anyway, in said man cave in the office is kind of wrestling posters and things like this. So let's have a little look. I've got 3. So this is wrestling specific. First of all, this is purely non-Wrestle Crate. This is fandom going into pre-Wrestle Crate, I guess. So there's 3 things in here that probably class as prized possessions. One is so Shawn Michaels is, to me, the greatest of all time. The guy who kind of got us into wrestling, made us fall in love with wrestling, etc. So I've got a pair of signed Shawn Michaels tights, which is obviously cool. I have, before Rob Schamberger kind of got signed to do what he does now, basically, probably in the last 2 or 3 months that he was still taking commissions, I commissioned a painting of Shawn Michaels, which loads of people have got a print of, but that print only exists because I commissioned the painting. So the actual painting's above my laptop. So that's pretty cool, obviously. And then when I went to WrestleMania 30, I've only ever been to one WrestleMania. And this is pre-Wrestle Crate days. And actually, I don't know if I would feel comfortable doing this now because I was in full-on fandom mode. But I bought the WrestleMania poster and I just got it signed off as many people as I could. So I've just got. Don't get us wrong. The autographs on there, a lot of them have got absolutely nothing to do with WrestleMania 30. I can see Goldberg's autograph on there, and that was before he was back in the warm bosom of WWE. But that poster, that's of no significance to anybody else. It's a wrestling poster signed by a load of wrestlers that have been in WWE, but nothing to do with WrestleMania 30. But it's important to me because it signifies the end of what was a great trip. Like my partner and I, my girlfriend and I, spent a week on a ranch in Texas before going over to New Orleans for WrestleMania 30, and it was just a great 2 weeks. And that poster reminds me of a great holiday, basically.
That's awesome.
Before kind of wrestling became work. So they're 3 prized possessions. That's how I think. Outside of that, I'm a sucker for B movies, action movies, specifically Jean-Claude Van Damme. That's a thing. So I've got this, 1/6 of the size statue of Jean-Claude. Well, like it's a doll, basically. It's a toy, but I'm going to call it a statue. It's like an action man.
A statue sounds better. Yeah, go with statue.
Exactly. And that's, you know, I mean, I can't believe I bought it. My girlfriend was like, "Where are you going to put that?" And I was like, "Probably in the living room." She's like, "You're obviously not putting it in the living room." It's been there about a year now, and she hasn't moved it. So I think it's fair to say that that's staying in the living room. So that's again, and that's because like I grew up enjoying Jean-Claude Van Damme movies from the 80s that I enjoyed throughout the entire 90s. So that's a prized possession purely because like it reminds us of just the stuff. I'm big into nostalgia, so it reminds us of just being younger and a simpler time.
What's your favorite Van Damme movie? I have one, but I want to know what yours is since you're a big Van Damme fan.
It's tied for 2, but okay. I'm not going to sit on the fence. Bloodsport edges it.
Thank you. Okay, good answer. As soon as you said Van Damme, I immediately was like Kumite. Bloodsport.
Oh yeah. Bloodsport is it's the film you can watch at any time. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
You can watch it and sit and enjoy it and watch it, you know, intently from start to finish. You can put it on in the background when you've got the guys round. You can sit and have it, enjoy it over a beer late at midnight. Like it's just one of those movies you can watch at any time, and it's just brilliant.
Awesome.
Like I feel bad now because I've never really been a Van Damme guy. I feel like now I'm the one that's outnumbered. You got 2 English accents on here against an American accent. I've got 2 Van Damme fans against me.
Well, it's on Netflix, so you know
it's so good.
I have time to watch it.
My gift to you is for you to enjoy Bloodsport when you get a moment.
I'll tell you what. I will take when I get up in the morning and I pretend to do 10 minutes of working from home. I will get on Netflix and I will slam on some Bloodsport and I will let you know
Dits,
what I think.
Dits, have you never seen Bloodsport?
I have never seen Bloodsport.
What?
I know.
I'm actually quite jealous that tomorrow you're going to experience for the first time the phenomenon that is Jean-Claude Van Damme's Bloodsport. Like, I wish I could not see it so that I could see it for the first time all over again.
I'm sure my 3-year-old will enjoy it as well because he'll be sat next to me.
It's awesome. Oh man, I'm jealous too. This conversation is taking a very interesting turn. I can't believe you've never seen Bloodsport. It's so awesome. Oh man, I'm jealous.
I don't know what it is with Van Damme. I've just never. Like, I honestly, there's no word of a lie, my only real exposure to Van Damme is when he cameoed in Friends and when he was in Expendables 2, was it? Or was it Expendables 1? Expendables 2. That's literally my Jean-Claude... Oh, and Coors Light, obviously, as well. That's it.
I mean, you've seen Van Damme over the years through that very small snapshot of seeing Van Damme, but you honestly, you've now got a wealth of kind of Van Damme enjoyment to go and soak in.
Yeah, Bloodsport is top notch. Sudden Death is a good one too.
Yeah,
Bloodsport is top
and
notch.
Kickboxer, that would be my other recommendation.
Yeah, Kickboxer.
So at some point over the next couple of days, you both are going to be getting DMs from me on Twitter saying either like you've hyped this up, I don't like it, or the more likely thing, because I'm a sucker for an action film, that was awesome.
It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome.
Once you've watched Bloodsport, because once you've watched it, you'll probably want to watch it again almost immediately because it's so good. But once you've watched Bloodsport, I remember a guy on Twitter a year or two ago posted a thread that went, I don't want to say viral, but it got shared around a lot. And he ranked every single fighter that was in Bloodsport from worst to best. And once you've watched Bloodsport, it'd be worth digging that up and seeing if you agree with his assessment of the tournament.
That's awesome.
I'll look that up.
You need to do it. With Shawn Michaels being your favorite wrestler, what's your favorite wrestling match of all time?
Believe it or not, it's not the first match that I saw, but it's the first match that made us watch wrestling religiously. So I got into wrestling in 97. Probably around the summer, and I kind of watched it. I think the program was called Shotgun Saturday Night, which was on just in the afternoon in the UK. It was like an hour-long like recap, I guess, of Raw and stuff. So I used to watch that, but I got into wrestling properly at Bad Blood 97, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker.
Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Kane
debuts. It had
debuts.
everything. Kane ripped the door off. Like, Shawn Michaels still won, even though he was like battered. bleeding. He'd been on top of the cage. He fell off the cage. Mick Foley hadn't done it then, so even falling kind of from half off the cage still felt huge. Yes. He had a fight with the cameraman. Like it just gripped me to the point that from then, for a solid 5 years, there wasn't a moment of wrestling that I missed. Well, certainly WWF and WCW. So yeah, to this day, that is I can put that on at any time and remember why I love wrestling.
That's awesome. That's a landmark match. As a wrestling fan, like I know it, and even my favorite wrestler of all time is Bret Hart, so I'm very conflicted when I think about Shawn Michaels. But I remember in that cell match, I wanted Michaels to get beat so bad, and then Taker just beats him up everywhere. But the match is so entertaining. I still have it ingrained in my brain of like Shawn trying to climb off the top of the cell, Taker stomping on his hands. Yeah, Shawn falls to the table, and then Kane comes out, and I was a small child, and I was terrified. He ripped the door off the hinges, and I was in shock. Oh, that's awesome.
It was unbelievable. And then the match at WrestleMania 25 is probably my second favorite match. And I just think that I know they had the next match at 26, but to me that totally bookmarked like an unbelievable rivalry that was, so infrequent, and it just revisited at the kind of twilight of I say the twilight of their career. Undertaker's been wrestling for 11 or 12 years since, and still having the best match at WrestleMania this year. But that was just so different at the Hell in the Cell, but just reminded me that these two are two of the all-time greatest ever. Like what you could show those two matches to anybody, and it's hard not to enjoy them as just entertainment, spectacle, whatever you want to call it.
Definitely. And then it spanned even their two follow-up matches at Mania, and then that extended into the Triple H matches with Undertaker. Yeah. And I think, my favorite Shawn Michaels moment ever, it is maybe like a dumb Michaels moment to have, but when Taker and Triple H are fighting at Mania in the cell, and Shawn Michaels is a special guest referee, and Shawn hits him with the sweet chin music to get Hunter to beat him, and then Taker still kicks out. That is, like, to this day, the kick out that I never thought would happen. Oh, I got goosebumps thinking about it, and the hair is standing up on my arms. That's awesome. Oh, man.
See, how could you not like wrestling based on all of that stuff? Like, seriously. So awesome. They just don't understand. They don't understand. But no, I mean, you, as a Shawn Michaels fan, like, you've been spoiled at WrestleMania, especially like in the back nine of his career. He had the Ric Flair match, and then, he's had Angle, the two Undertaker. I'm like, God, you've been spoiled.
Oh, man.
I mean, there felt like there was quite a clear divide between kind of OG Shawn Michaels before his back injury, and then kind of he was retired in quotes, and then his big comeback that lasted years and years after his retirement. Both were very different versions of Shawn Michaels, but but there was so much to go back and enjoy, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And obviously easy now with the WWE Network, but even kind of on DVDs and kind of best ofs and things like this, like, we're absolutely spoiled being Shawn Michaels fans. Like, so many of his matches you can kind of reminisce about and go, actually, that was really good. I'm going to go back and watch it. And then you watch it and it's still good today. And there's some wrestlers that you just don't have that with. You remember their matches being really good, and you go back and you're like, it was all right. But actually, I've seen so much good wrestling in the 2 decades since that it was just okay. But like a lot of what Shawn Michaels does, 95% of what he's done still holds up compared to kind of, he was ahead of his time, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Definitely.
As wrestling's evolved, you can watch all Shawn Michaels matches from the 90s, and they are still superb.
So I've got a scenario right now that I've wanted to be placed in for a little while here. So I've got a Bret Hart fan over in the New York side of things, and I have a Shawn Michaels fan over in the Newcastle side of things. Now, here's a hot take for you. I don't know how you'll feel about it, but their Iron Man match, not for me.
No, not for me either.
I've heard that a lot, and I understand it. And as a Bret Hart fan, that match could get burned and never talked about ever again, and I am completely 1000% fine with it. Yeah, I understand that match for what it did. Like, obviously being, Michael's title win, the restart of the match, Michael's coming down from the rafters to start. Like, I get the ambiance and the moment and just the cardio and like the physical ability to wrestle an entire match like that. But I totally understand why people aren't as big of a fan of that match. I can see where it's boring in long stretches.
Because I think the problem that I had, because there are so many matches from days gone by that were before I even became a fan that I've started to go back and watch, and that was one of them. I think I watched it in maybe December last year, and it was on on the WWE Network. Obviously, you got a couple of superstars did their best of recommendations kind of thing. And I think Adam Cole put that match in there. Sasha Banks might have put that match in there. And then it's just universal acclaim, from across the board from what I've seen. And then to sit down and watch it, so hyped for this thing, thinking it was going to be an absolute masterclass. I think I timed it. And that last 15 minutes of that match, I think 12 was in in wrestling holds. I was like, and every
they were
time,
tired, man.
Every time it was just building up to something really good, and it was just we're back into a headlock. That's great. It was very disappointing.
I think you've hit the nail on the head saying it's impressive and the cardio is good, and it had moments that if you watch the highlights and if you kind of see the snippets that have been shown in the decades since, you remember those and they were big moments. But to sit and watch it for the hour and 15 or whatever it was, you're right. It just didn't have that grip that wrestlers of both of their ability are capable of having. So, and there's probably a reason why there hasn't been a whole lot of hour-long Iron Man matches in all of that time since. I mean, you think about Hell in a Cell, how good that was. And even though it was as good as it was, there's been I don't know, however many Hell in a Cell matches since. I would estimate a lot. It's been, but I'm struggling to think of many hour-long Iron Man matches. Maybe 5. 6,
they'll do 30-minute ones now, but
exactly,
hour-longs are tough, and it's a tough wear and tear on your body. I think the build-up for that match was better than the match itself, and I had high hopes for it because I remember I was really little, but I had recently before that, I had seen on video Brett and Shawn had a ladder match. I think it's the first ladder match ever in WWF history in 93 or 94, and it was great. And so I thought this Iron Man match was going to be awesome. I mean, I was also little and stupid, and I thought Brett was going to win. And God, I can still see Brett walking through the curtain with the belt and Gorilla Monsoon restarting the match. And I just remember my older brother being like, Brett's going to lose. He's got to go back in the ring and he's going to lose. And I was like, oh, God, he is.
I think you're right, though. The build-up to it was really good.
You remember all those training videos and snippets?
They that doesn't happen very much. Even then, it didn't happen very much. And I think I saw some clips of Drew McIntyre doing some training for his match at WrestleMania, and I love all that. I think that's that kind of Rocky Balboa style training, but without the cheese, just the I'm taking this serious. I'm doing my cardio. I love that. It gives you that big fight feel, and I think the match had that. It was the hour long, the spectacle lasting the hour. It didn't have enough to do the full hour.
Yeah, and I think at this point now, it's in that moment. When it was live, the build-up was so great. I think it was hard to live up to the build. And then now, when you when you think about it, or if people go to talk about it, the only thing you hear is oh, Bret Hart, oh, Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania main event, 60 minutes. All those things are immediately well, I've got two of the greatest wrestlers of all time, and they're wrestling in this WrestleMania main event for the belt. And it's the first one that Shawn wins. That's the main, and he comes down from the rafters on a zip line. What? There's all these things, and I think it gets built up in people's minds, and then I added on top of that when you see it, and you're just kind of oh, I think it's hard for it to meet expectations. And then on its own, it's just there are definitely pacing issues. Yeah, I get it.
Something that I've thought about in the past is that there's I guess kind of the opposite of that was true of the Survivor Series Montreal Screwjob match, in that everybody talks about and remembers, for obvious reasons, the moment. But actually, that match was really good. Like, in the build up to the Screwjob, the actual match was they were laying into each other, and two technicians of kind of different varieties, but ultimately two in-ring geniuses, having the match spill out and brawl up and down the aisleway and be kind of really hard hitting. Them when it was in the ring, it was quick, it was snappy, it was a really good match. But you don't remember that. You just remember the last 2 minutes.
It gets overshadowed a lot. I think both of their like legacies are, well, I guess Sean's is less because he's had so many more great matches in WWE after the Montreal Screwjob, but that moment just like overarches a lot for their careers, and that match is a perfect example. Yeah, that's a really good match. It's hard hitting, it's fast paced, it's snappy, it's got punch to it, it's got grit, but the only thing everybody remembers is Brett getting screwed and writing WCW in the air with his finger and spitting on Vince.
Yeah.
That was a good bit of gob there as well, wasn't it?
Oh yeah,
he went on it hard, yeah.
Yeah, because I only just watched the Screwjob Dark Side of the Ring. I watched the episode of that a couple of weeks ago. Covered that as part of my like leadership training within the Navy. I bought. Oh my god! Like this presentation, like, had people bored out of their mind. I was there, like, stood there, like, really excited, talking about the build up to this match, how great the match was. It was all in pictures, had like little gifs of every like significant moment in the match. And I was like up there, like really excited. I was like, I'm killing this. And like literally everyone was afterwards, like, so someone actually literally put their hand up and said, "You know it's fake, don't you?" I was like,
"Oh, it's not fake."
You just wait till you get out of this fucking classroom, you fucking ass. So I was just like, do you fancy coming up here and I'll give you a demonstration of the sharpshooter? You asshole.
Oh, man.
But there you go. There's a...
peek into your world.
Well, yeah, a little peek into my crazy world of military life with people that don't appreciate the world of wrestling.
That's a nice little cherry on top for us to get a peek into your world after Rich gave us a peek into his personal world and the world of Wrestle Crate. And oh man, this was so fascinating to me.
Like, yeah, exactly. I'm glad that we asked you to come on, because I knew you had a story, but like, and especially as somebody who has this crate, like, to know everything that goes into this. I'm not even going to guess what the dimensions of this crate are because it's sat next to me, but everything goes into this crate that is sat next to me, like just the hard work, the passion, the graft, just everything. Like, it makes me like appreciate it more. It makes me more excited to get it when it comes to my house. So like, thank you for coming on and just giving us all of that. It was fantastic.
Honestly, it's been my absolute pleasure. For me, this is kind of just life, so I don't know, is this going to be interesting to other people? Do people want to hear what I do behind the scenes? Will people be bothered by it? Do you know what I mean? So again, just thank you. It's been really fun talking to you both. Genuinely, really appreciate you having us on. Obviously, supporting Wrestle Crate by getting one yourself. Thank you very much. It's been really nice chatting to you, and thanks for listening to my stories and letting us just kind of waffle on a little bit about what I do and what Wrestle Crate is.
I echo what Ant said earlier on when we were talking. Like, he could literally listen to you speak for hours, and like I echo that because what a story. Like, I'm so glad that you've come on. I'm sure the one listener of the DOWPOD will be very appreciative of you coming on as well.
No, it's and you should never doubt if you're a wrestling fan, being able to sit down and speak to you is even just to talk to you about wrestling. Like, I know it's early where I am in New York, but like, it's obviously later where you guys are, but we could sit here and talk wrestling and talk shop for like hours. I think we've already kind of got a glimpse of that. But so just to sit and like talk to you as a wrestling fan is awesome. Two, if you are a wrestling fan yourself, to be able to like hear what you've done for the wrestling community and delivering like this product and this service to them, like any wrestling fan should want to like hear what you've done and how you've been able to build this. And then like the last part, even if you're not a wrestling fan, you've legitimately created this successful business. And like I guess that prototypical like story of like starting from the ground up and taking something small and turning it into something bigger. And your business model is successful and sustainable at this point. You've managed to navigate the whole coronavirus nonsense and take some risks and still be profitable, but still get back and do some good things. So yeah, never again should you ever be like, oh man, are like people going to want to hear me speak, or is this or that, or do people, because your story, your business, you as a person, it was all awesome. This is one of the best experiences I've ever had. Thank you very much for coming on. This was great.
Very humbling. Thank you very much.
And Rich, consider this an open invitation. If like Wrestle Crate aside, like come back on, and we will literally just sit and talk about the graps.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Good.
And it means we get to disrupt Ant's day as well, because it's too early for him usually. So I'm all for that.
No, this is great. Yeah, Danny, that would be awesome if we could do that. Oh man, yeah, this was a great time.
Cheers for coming on, buddy.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rich. Have a good one.
Well, Anthony, that was a really good chat.
That was fucking awesome.
And I'm going to take all the credit. My get, of course.
You do deserve the credit. You should take the credit. It was your get. You straight up messaged me like, oh, hey, like, what if we could do this? And I was like, yeah, do it. And as you mentioned in the intro, like a couple day turnaround time, and here we are. And yeah, that was fucking awesome. We got to, like, I mentioned it towards the end in speaking with him, but like if you're a wrestling fan, to anytime you get to speak to other like real wrestling fans, one, that's fucking awesome. But in this instance, like, you're talking to a guy who created something like out of his wrestle fandom and like collectors and geekdom fandom. And I'm a geek everybody's a geek or a nerd for certain things. And I have even more of an appreciation for what he does on top of that. And then even if you just eliminate the wrestling part, like we mentioned several times during the interview and at the intro of this episode, like, this is a legitimate success story. This is a guy who had like an idea for something and he crafted it and molded it. And it took like several years to kind of get it from, point A to point B. He started out moving stuff in vans, and now he's got like a warehouse and multiple levels of employees. Like it just works on so many levels. And I had a blast doing this interview. He was awesome, and Wrestle Crate UK is awesome. This was a real treat. And
it's one of those things as well. You have like expectations going into it, but like this like far exceeded it. I wasn't expecting as much depth, and I'm one of those people that like I think people get scared of like complete waffle and all that kind of stuff, but right. Like I mean we echoed it a couple of times in the chat itself. Like we could have just listened to Richard talk for like God knows how many hours.
Yeah, he had so much insight, and I think that was spot on with what you just said. Like you never know how things are going to go. And we could have just been like, oh, so like, how'd you get your start? And he could have just been like, well, like I liked wrestling and wanted to like make a business for it. And, so here I am. And we were just been like, okay, great. So that was 5 seconds of not really much, but yeah, he gave like natural responses and insight. And you can tell like his passion for wrestling and his passion for what he does. It just comes right through when he speaks. And I think that was like one of the most rewarding things for me in the interview, like just talking to a guy who genuinely loves and enjoys what he does. It was so cool.
And we've already spoken outside of the chat itself. We'll get Rich back on in the near future to talk just talk wrestling, because that's really what it's all about. The Wrestle Crate obviously was the crux of the show today, the crux of it. But we'll bring him on in the near future. We'll just talk some wrestling.
Yeah, we could have very easily gotten. Pat on the back to us for keeping ourselves reined in, because we definitely could have gone off the rails at the end when we started talking wrestling, and we could have been on for another hour to 4 hours just talking about wrestling stuff. So yeah, we reined it in at the end.
We'll be releasing this thing in 2 parts.
Yeah, over 2 years.
Over 2 years. I mean, we can use this opportunity for you, Anthony, to take some of the spotlight. Richard's had the spotlight for an hour and a half. It's time for you to have some spotlight, because I'm a giving guy. I'm just like that.
God.
You've changed things up in the last week, haven't you?
I have. It was super stressful. I've been undergoing, we've alluded to it a couple times discreetly, but I've been undergoing somewhat of a podcast rebrand over the last several months or so, over the last month especially. So I am Anthony. I used to be the host of Anthony Talks Stuff, a podcast. You used to be able to find me on Twitter at a certain Twitter handle. Those both are no longer the case. I am still Anthony, haven't changed my legal name, but I am now the host of Wagons and Warpaths. It is a Buffalo sports talk podcast focusing on the Buffalo Bills and Buffalo Sabres, mainly focusing on NFL, NHL, and some other sports, but mainly Bills, mainly Sabres, Buffalo sports talk, Wagons and Warpaths. Find me on Twitter at Wagons_Warpaths. I really wanted to make the Twitter handle just the actual word Wagons and Warpaths, but it was too long, and I thought people would get too confused with the little and symbol, which is called an ampersand. I thought it'd be too hard to say that, so I just made it an underscore in the middle. So again, I'm still Anthony. Find me on Twitter at Wagons_Warpaths. The name of the podcast is Wagons and Warpaths, focusing on Buffalo sports, and then I'll be here regularly, weekly, sometimes bi-weekly or multiple times a week on the DOWPOD, talking wrestling, talking all things that are great. Thank you so much for giving me that time to shine on this ship.
Yeah, you get 2 potentially free appearances on the DOWPOD this week.
I do, yeah. We got to do this awesome interview and appear on this week, and then in a couple days we're going to beat the ever-loving shit out of Headlock Talk in this Draft That episode, so I'll be able to do that again, and yeah, it's a good week.
And if you are listening to this after that Draft That episode has aired, then hopefully we won.
I would have already known what I said, and that we did, in fact, beat the ever-loving shit out of Headlock Talk.
I'll be devastated if we lose. We can't lose on our own show.
If we lose, the episode won't release. So, problem solved.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't come to that. I need a birthday episode.
If we feel
I'll re-release like the first ever episode that I ever did, and having listened back to that 2 days ago, it was fucking horrendous.
Make progressions. You've progressed in your podcast ability the same way Rick's progressed in Wrestle Crate, and yeah, well, that's a nice little tie up, and yeah, we won't. If we feel like we'll just be poor sports about it. If we feel like we lost that draft battle, we just won't release the episode. So if you're hearing this and there was no episode, we lost, and therefore we took our ball and went home and didn't release it. If you did hear the other episode that we're referencing, then you already know that we continued our championship reign and we won.
It'll be released like 5 years down the line. I go, I got this thing in the archive that we never released, and and then I'll just U-turn and go, yeah, I'm still not ready. I'm still not ready.
They lost.
I'll fucking edit. I'll edit it so it sounds like we won.
Yeah, I would say just chop it all up, edit it for like an entire day straight, chop everything up. If they made really good picks, just switch it and make it sound like we had those picks, and then we'll win.
Yeah, I'll get you to send me like voice clips of the gimmicks.
Yeah,
there you go. We definitely said it.
Yeah, we'll just take their picks.
But that is all coming up on the show on Sunday. But as we said, if you're listening to this afterwards, then hopefully that episode aired. But as far as plugs for me, obviously you are already listening to this, so you've already found it on your favorite podcasting app. But I am available on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and Google Pods, a whole host of podcasting apps, directories, whatever you want to call it. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you follow, make sure you review. It's all good for Ant and myself to get all that good stuff. And on the social media side of things, Twitter is my only place. So at Dits on Wrestling on Twitter, you'll find me there. And of course, my YouTube channel as well, where all these episodes also air. That's Dits on YouTube. Go down to that and subscribe, because you get additional wrestling content as well as gaming stuff as well. Just to add that onto the side.
A little bit of cherry on top.
A little bit of a cherry, Got to give back. Got to give back.
Get some additional contact. More like you get some additional contact. See what I did there? You saw what I did?
Wow.
You saw what I did?
I thought I'd give you a bit of silence there. I did see what you did there. I like plays on words. They're good.
I wanted to make sure you knew.
But as always, guys, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you in 2 days.
And we will for the massacre.
for the massacre. See you later, guys.